The International Energy Agency is calling for drastic changes in major industries to wean the world off fossil fuels. The body says these will be necessary to keep global heating under control, and failure to act now will have disastrous consequences. Paolo Montecillo has more.
The $11 billion Nord Stream 2 pipeline is designed to ensure the stable supply of gas to Germany. For Russia, it'll be a fresh source of revenue from Europe's largest economy. So both sides have defended their partnership amid objections from Washington and Brussels.
Unfortunately, there are a lot of political speculations around the project, but I would like to underline this is a purely economic project and it has nothing to do with today's political agenda.
I would like to point out that the gas delivered through Nord Stream 2, which isn't yet flowing, is no worse than the gas from Nord Stream 1, which flows through Ukraine, or that which comes from Russia via Turkey.
But the International Energy Agency has made a new case for the cancellation of the pipeline and other projects like it. In a new report, the Paris-based body has laid out a roadmap for containing global heating. The report says all new oil, gas, and coal projects must be stopped immediately. It's also calling for a rapid acceleration in renewable energy investments to $5 trillion a year by 2030 from $2 trillion this year. And to help ensure demand for fuel goes down, the IEA says sales of petrol and diesel-powered cars should be stopped by 2035. These are just a few of the recommendations that are expected to guide the next round of climate talks in Scotland in November.
If we do not act now, we will witness a scale of global catastrophe, the likes of which the world has not seen. And quite rightly, future generations will hold us responsible.
According to the IEA, its proposals would benefit both the environment and the economy. It says higher renewable energy investments would create millions of jobs and give global GDP a 4% boost by 2030. Paolo Montecillo, TRT World.
Let's get more on this now with Bob Ward in London. He's a policy director at the Grantham Research Institute on Climate Change and the Environment at the London School of Economics. Welcome to the program, Bob. The IEA says in order to reach net zero carbon emissions by 2050, investment in new fossil fuel projects must stop immediately and that no new coal power plants should be approved. But given that so many countries are reliant on fossil fuels either as an energy source or for revenue or both, do you think that is a realistic demand?
Well, the fact is that if the world is going to reach net zero emissions by 2050, which is what is required if we're going to limit the rise in global temperature to no more than 1.5 degrees and avoid all the big impacts that would come from heating the planet more than that, then we can only really afford to consume the fossil fuels that we already have in our reserves. So anything else we look for now, we're not essentially going to be able to consume, and it's a waste of money. So that's what the IEA has pointed out today, is that we already have all the coal, oil and gas that we could consume that would be consistent with that target of net zero emissions by 2050.
We heard there from a UK government minister, the UK being a global leader in terms of the adoption of renewable energy sources. But India's energy minister says net zero is a pie in the sky ambition. Do you think that is the case, that India does make a point there that while wealthy nations have already done the bulk of their polluting to get their economies up to this point, emerging economies should be given a bit of slack in terms of the use of reasonably cheaper fossil fuels in order to get their economies to the point that developed economies are at right now?
Well, it's certainly true that the rich countries have to lead the way here and need to be cutting their emissions more strongly and setting an example, and also providing financial support to developing countries to make the transition. But the fact is this: global warming will continue until the world reaches net zero global emissions. And the countries that are most vulnerable to the impacts are the developing countries. So they cannot win unless the global emissions are reduced to net zero. It won't benefit India if we continue to see emissions. So it is right that we all make the transition. China has learned to its cost that if you bring people out of poverty by burning lots of coal, you end up creating huge economic damage through local air pollution and through global warming. So countries like India, the secret to them is that they need to develop by skipping this stage of using dirty fuels like coal, oil and gas and go directly to clean fuels such as wind, solar, perhaps nuclear energy, and benefit both from the investment that will generate and the fact that it doesn't come with all the disadvantages of fossil fuels, which we can see are causing damage all around the world.
There are still a lot of jobs in fossil fuels and a lot of money to be made from exploiting oil and gas reserves. Do sustainable and renewable energy sources offer the same kind of returns?
Well, if we take the example of the United States, there are far more people currently employed in the wind and solar industries than are employed in the coal industry. And in the US, it is now economically not sustainable to generate power from coal. It's much cheaper to use wind and solar. So wind and solar is beating fossil fuels as the most economic solution all around the world. And increasingly, countries are going to be investing there. Fossil fuels don't make economic sense and they don't make environmental sense. And I think that a lot of countries are beginning to realize it. The future is in clean power, not in old, dirty power.
Okay, Bob Ward from the Grantham Research Institute on climate change and the environment. Thank you so much again for joining us on Money Talks.